Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 47. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahansa Paribrajacacharya Stotara Sata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Sila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 47. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenantaratmanaha Shraddavan vajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha Yoginam api sarvesham margatenantaratmana Shraddavan vajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenantaratmana Yoginam Shraddavan vajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenantaratmana Shraddavan vajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha Yoginam of all yogis api also sarvesham all types of Matgatena abiding in me, Antatmana, always thinking of me within. Shraddhavan, in full faith. Bhajate, renders transcendental loving service. Ya, one who, Mam, me, the Supreme Lord. Sa, he, me, mine. Yuktatama, the greatest yogi. Mataha is considered. Translations and purport by Srila Prabhupada. And of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Purport. The word bhajate is significant here. Bhajate has its root in the verb bhaj, which is used when there is a need of service. The English word worship cannot be used in the same sense as bhaja. Worship means to adore or to show respect and honor to the worthy one. But service with love and faith is especially meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can avoid worshipping a respectable man or a demigod, and he may be called discourteous, but one cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. Every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus every living entity is intended to serve the Supreme Lord by his own constitution. Failing to do this, he falls down. The Bhagavatam confirms this as follows. Ya esham purusham sakshat atma prabhavam ishvaram na bhajanti avajananti stanat brashta patanti adaha. Anyone who does not render service and neglects his duty to the primeval Lord, who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall down from his constitutional position. In this verse, the word bhajanti is used. Therefore, bhajanti is applicable to the Supreme Lord only, whereas the word worship can be applied to demigods or to any other common living entity. The word avajananti, used in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, is also found in the Bhagavad Gita. Avajananti mam mudaha. Only the fools and rascals deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Such fools take it upon themselves to write commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita without an attitude of service to the Lord. Consequently, they cannot properly distinguish between the word bhajanti and the word worship. The culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. All other yogas are but a means to come to the point of bhakti in bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. All other yogas are progressions toward the destination of bhakti yoga. From the beginning of karma yoga to the end of bhakti yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma yoga without fruitive result is the beginning of this path. When karma yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, that stage is called jnana yoga. When jnana yoga increases in meditation on the supersoul by different physical processes and the mind is on him, it is called ashtanga yoga. And when one surpasses the ashtanga yoga and comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, it is called bhakti yoga. The culmination. Factually, bhakti yoga is the ultimate goal. But to analyze bhakti yoga minutely, one has to surrender. One has to understand these other yogas. The yogi who is progressive, therefore, on the true path of eternal good fortune. One who sticks to a particular point and does not make further progress is called by that particular name, karma yogi, jnana yogi, or dhyana yogi, raja yogi, hatha yogi, etc. If one is fortunate enough to come to the point of Bhakti Yoga, it is to be understood that he has surpassed all the other yogas. Therefore, to become Krishna conscious is the highest stage of yoga. Just as when we speak of Himalayan, we refer to the world's highest mountains, of which the highest peak, Mount Everest, is considered to be the culmination. It is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of Bhakti Yoga, to become well situated according to the Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Shama Sundara, who is as beautiful, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels and luster, and whose body is flower-garlanded. Illuminating all sides of his gorgeous luster, which is called the Brahmajyoti. He incarnates in different forms such as Rama, Ninshinga, Varaha, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he descends like a human being as the son of Mother Yashoda, and he is known as Krishna, Govinda, and Vasudeva. He is the perfect child, husband, friend, and master, and he is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. This stage of highest perfection in yoga can be attained only by Bhakti Yoga, as it is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. Yasya deve para bhaktir, yatha deve tata guru, tasyaite katita I artha prakashante mahatmanaha. Only to those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Bhaktir asya bhajanam tadhiya manupadi naish rasyena amushmin manaha kalpanam etadeva naish karmyam. Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord, which is free from desire for material profit, either in this life or in the next. Devoid of such inclination, one should fully absorb his mind in the Supreme. That is the purpose of Naishkarmya. These are some of the means for performance of bhakti or Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of the yoga system. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmanaha Shradhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. This is a very important verse, and we should pay close attention to it. Krishna is teaching Arjuna the process of Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya means to count. Sankhya means like arithmetic, counting, examining. So Sankhya Yoga means to examine everything, to understand what is our relationship with what we examine. When we examine the material world, when we examine our relationships in the material world, when we examine our situation, our property, our business, our talents, our family, then we can understand that our relationship with these things is temporary, and it is based on the bodily conception. Because I have this body, then I understand that my father has his body and my mother has her body. My children have their bodies, but these bodies are all connected because of my identification with this body. There is a very nice example in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There was one king, and he was childless. He wanted a son, and no matter what austerities he performed and how many queens he had, he wasn't able to produce a son. He had many, many queens. So one day, the great sage Narada came to visit in his palace, and he begged him, "My dear Narada Muni, please bless me so I can have a son." So Narada, who is like Krishna, Sarvagya. Sarvagya means he knows everything, past, present, and future. because of his intimate connection with Krishna. So he understood what the king's karma was. And he said, "My dear king, I can give you this blessing to get a son. But please understand that this son, although he will give you great pleasure, he will also cause you great pain. So be aware, be warned." But the king says, "I don't mind. Whatever pain he may give me, just give me a son. Whatever condition, I'll accept." So Narada gave the blessing, and indeed the principal queen became pregnant, and in due course gave birth to this boy. And he was very beautiful, and they thoroughly loved. The king and queen became so absorbed in the beauty and the affection for this child that they forgot everything else. In fact, the queen neglected all his other consorts. He had many, many dozens of queens, and he neglected them all, and he only paid attention to the queen mother of the child. So the other queens, they became very upset and very envious of this mother and her baby. So they poisoned the baby, and the baby died. So you can imagine, when the king and queen found the baby dead, they merged into an ocean of pain, desperation. They didn't know what to do, and in great pain they cried out, and Narada Muni appeared before them, and he said, "This has happened now. I have warned you. I have given you knowledge that this child will give you great pain, and now it has come to pass." And the king says, "Please, can you bring him back to life? We'll do anything." So Narada Muni, he brought the child back to life. So the child woke up, and he looked left and right, and he said, "Who are you?" looking at his father. And he looked at his mother and said, "Who are you?" he says. And Narada said, "This, my dear child, is your mother and father." The child says, "But what mother and father?" He says, "I had a mother and father before, many, many times, many, many lives. And I understand that now that I'm leaving this body, I will have another mother and father. So what is the position of this particular mother and father? What is so important about them? I'm just passing through." So the king was very intelligent, and by this description of the child, he understood what is the purpose of life. He understood his spiritual nature. He understood his position as a spirit soul. He no longer identified with his queen, with his queens, with his palace, with his position. And sometimes it is necessary that we become a little shocked, that we encounter some trauma. And sometimes when there is a big trauma, then we become ready to actually become humble and inquire about our nature. So when we inquire about our nature, then we connect with Krishna through the process of yoga. Yoga means to connect. This is the meaning of the word yoga. And there is different ways of connecting. The topmost way is bhakti yoga, or the connection through love. It is the strongest bond. But basic yoga is taught as one of the 6 philosophical disciplines of Vedic culture. And it was delineated and explained by the sage Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras. Now these Yoga Sutras were practiced and were suitable for previous ages. In the age of Satya Yuga, when people lived for 100,000 years, where they had sufficient time to meditate, when the culture, when almost 100% of humanity in Satya Yuga, they believed in Dharma, they believed in God, they understood the purpose of life was to reconnect with their Creator, to reconnect with Lord in the heart. And they had a society built to facilitate this idea. The kings were not just kings, they were Raja Rishis. There were sages in the position of kings. They understood what the need of their subject was. Nowadays, our kings, prime ministers, presidents, they are simply exploiting people. They're exploiting us. They're simply taxing us and putting the money in their pocket. They are not interested in our welfare, nor do they know what is our welfare. They glorify the flag, they glorify the nation, the national anthem, the jingoism. It is all rubbish. It has nothing to do with who we are. Therefore, practicing yoga was practical in Satya Yuga because the circumstances were favorable. There were sages living in the forest. They would build beautiful ashrams with a garden, and they would grow flowers and vegetables and tulsi plant, and they would sit in meditation. So people from the cities or from the villages, they could retire and go and live with these sages and practice the practice of yoga. For example, Dhruva Maharaj, in the beginning of this kalpa, beginning of these 4 yugas in Satya Yuga, Dhruva Maharaj, he also went to the forest. When he was insulted by his stepmother, he went to the forest to look for God, to look for Krishna. And he practiced the program of Ashtanga Yoga. He was standing on one foot for days. He was eating only leaves, tremendous austerities. And by his austerities and by the internal meditation on the super soul, he was able to see that the super soul came outside his body in the form of Vishnu, form of Krishna, and Dhruva Maharaj saw him perfectly. But nowadays, we are living in Kali Yuga, which is the end of this millennium, end of this kalpa. We only live 100 years, and even that is not guaranteed. We are manda sumanda matayo. That is the opinion of one of the great speakers of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sutta Goswami, Sukadeva Goswami. This prayena alpausha yuge asmin yuge asmin yuge, I forget the verse, but what he's saying that people in Kali Yuga have very short lives. Manda sumanda matayo. They are manda, they are crippled in mind and crippled in spirit. Sumanda matayo, their mind is crazy. Manda bhagya, they are unfortunate. And because of this, upadrutaha, they are always disturbed. So in Kali Yuga, the process of yoga cannot work. At the most, you can practice yoga and get a beautiful body. This is all these yoga societies that we see in the present, they're all meant simply to give you some physical beauty and mental peace. But it cannot stop the most important problem, which is death, old age, disease, and birth. That is the real problem. So, in Kali Yuga, we have another example of Prahlad Maharaj. Of course, that also happened in Satya Yuga at the beginning of this millennium. But he became perfect, not by his own endeavors, but practicing yoga. He became perfect by the mercy of a pure devotee, by the mercy of Narada Muni. In fact, Prahlad Maharaj's father was a great demon, Hiranyakashipu. And when he was fighting with the demigods, he was at one point so distressed that he had to abandon his capital city. And the demigods captured his wife. And they were about to kill her. So Narada Muni came and said, "Why are you killing a woman?" And they said, "It's not a problem with the woman." He says, "She is pregnant. She has the seed, the son of this demon Hiranyakashipu in the womb. We want to arrest her, and when the boy is born, we will kill him." So Narada said, "No." He says, "This boy is actually a very great devotee." So they accepted the instructions from Narada Muni, because what had happened is that this lady, pregnant lady, she was abandoned by a husband who was being defeated by the demigods. So she came to live in his ashram, Narada Muni's hermitage. And Narada Muni would speak to her about the philosophy of life. And in the womb, the baby, the fetus, Prahlad Maharaj, he was listening to the instructions of Narada Muni, and he became a pure devotee simply by this association. So In Kali Yuga, the process of connecting with the Supreme Lord is by chanting the holy name. Kala dosha nide rajan. Same Sukadeva Goswami, who commented on the short lives and unfortunate situation of humanity, he says that in Kali Yuga, it is nothing but fault. Dosha nide. Nida means ocean, and dosha means fault. So my dear king, Sukadeva said to Parikshit, Kali Yuga is an ocean of fault. Is eka mahanguna. However, asli, there is one great quality. Kirtanadeva Krishnasya. Simply by chanting the name of Krishna, Mukta Sangha, you become free from material bondage, Param Brajet, and you go to the supreme destination. What is the supreme destination? That is being united in bhakti, in devotion with Krishna. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilocharena. What is bhakti? Bhakti is to have the ointment of love on your eyes. So everywhere you look, you see Krishna. Everywhere you see, because of your love of Krishna, everything you see will become connected to him. Once you understand that Krishna is the original creator of everything, then everything you see, you understand, is created by Krishna. Therefore, the forest, the gardens are very conducive to spiritual life, whereas the cities and the hotels and the brothels are not. Because in the garden and in a forest, you can actually see the beauty of Krishna. I have a garden at the back of my house. Now spring has come, a little late, but I see all the flowers and the trees are blooming in different colors, and each one of them is showing off such a beautiful aspect of its life. And actually all these blooming flowers and trees are offering their beauty to Krishna, because I understand that Krishna has created them. So this is the process. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilocharena. Shanta Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. Then by this loving sight of seeing Krishna everywhere, you actually see Krishna within the heart. Yam Shama Sundara, and he's Shama Sundara. He is dark Shama, but he's very, very beautiful. Achintya Guna Swarupan, and he's the essence of all inconceivable qualities. This is Govinda. So this process of seeing Krishna is the process of chanting. This is the process given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Krishna is as explained in the purport by Srila Prabhupada, is the origin of all manifestation. Ramadi Murti Shukalani Amena Tishna Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu. Because Krishna is the origin, then Rama, Nrsinga, Vara, all the different avatars, incarnations of Krishna, are created to give pleasure to the devotees, or created to maintain the universe. Everything is done by Krishna. Krishna Swayam, Samabhavat Paramam Pumanyo. He's the Paramam, he's the Supreme Person, Paramam Puman. And we can understand this very easily in Kali Yuga by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Specifically here, living in the West, we are totally indebted to Srila Prabhupada. I know now there are many groups teaching Bhakti Yoga, different mats, different associations, but they are all following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada. No one can say that Prabhupada was not the first, and we are all indebted to him very, very much. Thank you very much. So we have some comments from Vishnivamsa, all glories to the assembled devotees, Jiv Jago. But whatever means, surrender to Sri Krishna and meditate on his holy and sacred names. If you forget his name, nothing is holy and sacred anymore. Very wise words. And also we have a comment from Kuldeep Minyani, my old friend, from what is the name of this, where he lives? Doesn't matter. So Kuldeep says, Hare Krishna Satya Vachan. This is the truth, the true words of Krishna. Good. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all next week on Wednesday.